YouTube kanal olishingiz mumkin bo'ladi. Mana tepasida qarang, chiqdi ekranda.
Madam Ambassador, please make sure you have selected the interpretation channel.
I think Ambassador stepped out. We will inform her again when she's back. Ассаламу алейкум, Джахангар. Я говорю, что посол, по-моему, отошла, она сейчас подойдет, надо будет еще раз ей повторить.
Да, хорошо.
Я думаю, что она знает, как пользоваться. Просто ей нужно сказать, какой канал выбрать. Синхронка будет.
Все, я запустил и трансляцию в YouTube, и запись в Cloud, и запускаю участников. Если, пока они подключатся, потом можем начинать. На ваше усмотрение, Айскарина.
Да, пожалуйста.
Да, я вас хорошо слышу. Гуля включила запись, говорит. На английском, да? Все, у нее запись идет нормально. Ага.
Доброе утро, уважаемые участники. Обратите внимание, что на сегодняшней сессии, которая начнется ровно через 4 минуты, у нас предоставлен синхронный перевод. И, пожалуйста, в нижней части окна Zoom нажмите на кнопочку, которая похожа на глобус, и выберите русский канал перевода, если вы не понимаете английский язык. Спасибо.
Джахангир Аке, можете объяснить, госпожа посол?
Madam Ambassador, welcome back. Please make
Thank you
sure
very
that
much.
please make sure that you have enabled interpretation channel. It's in the bottom of your Zoom window.
I think I have.
Yeah, please choose English. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, I have.
Айзапа, можем начинать.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Good morning, Your Excellency, the Ambassador. Assalamu alaikum, hurmatli Ulugбек Nikmatovich, hurmatli Uzok Boysha Imkulevich, dear Anika, hurmatli seminar ishtirokchilari. The objective of our seminar today, actually it will last 2 days, today and tomorrow, is to present and to discuss the strategy, management, implementation of joint and double degree programs. The topic is highly relevant, and we are intended to share the experience of the European partners and to discuss the development of joint degrees. In the framework of the European Union Erasmus Plus program, in addition to well-known capacity building in higher education projects and international credit mobility, there are also the so-called technical assistance missions providing the target seminar on highly relevant actual topics, which has been proposed by the Ministry of Higher Secondary Specialized Education and agreed the relevance of the topic to organize the seminar. For me, it's a great pleasure to introduce you with our external expert, my colleague Annika Sandbeck-Lindros. She is from Finland. She is a leader of global team at the Finnish National Agency for Education. She has great long-term professional career in internationalization with a focus on transnational partnerships, joint degrees, quality assurance, and capacity building. Today event will be led by Annika, and we really appreciate her experience and her great support in organizing this seminar. Now, for me, it's a great honor to give a floor to the head of EU delegation to the Republic of Uzbekistan, the ambassador, Her Excellency Charlotte Adrian. And again, we would like to express our gratitude for your commitment to address today the higher education community in Uzbekistan. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much. And assalamu alaikum. Your Excellencies and Professor Tash Tenkaev, Professor Begimkulov, esteemed academics, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me welcome on behalf of the European Union all the representatives of the universities from all the regions of Uzbekistan and the national higher education reform experts. I'm very pleased to attend my very first Erasmus event in my capacity of ambassador to the EU to Uzbekistan. It's a great pleasure for me. And what could be more appropriate place to start my work in Uzbekistan in this year of science, education, and digital economy. As the President said in his New Year's speech, special attention will be paid to enhancing the coverage and the quality of higher education. And EU, we definitely want to be part of that effort. It's a pleasure also for me to welcome the European expert, Ms. Annika Sandbeck-Lindros, as you heard, who is from the Finnish National Agency for Education, and who is invited to share her extensive experience on the topic of this seminar. The European Union has been providing support to Uzbekistan's education reform process for more than 27 years, since the very beginning of our diplomatic relations. And since 2014, the higher education cooperation has been intensified within Erasmus Plus via extended opportunities for joint projects, for credit mobility partnerships, targeted seminars and conferences to raise awareness among stakeholders of priority issues in higher education. It's worth maybe to emphasize that this specific expertise was requested, as mentioned, was requested by the Ministry of Higher Secondary Specialized Education and supported by the Erasmus Plus national team of higher education reform experts. The Erasmus Plus Technical Assistance Mission will provide and provides targeted assistance to the ongoing modernization of higher education system. To date, 14 technical assistance missions have already been organized on different topics with the participation of EU experts from different EU member states. And today's seminar is a virtual one and is dedicated to development of the joint programs, which is one of the current priorities in higher education system of Uzbekistan. Today is also the first opportunity for me to share with you one of the findings of the recently finalized National Impact Study on the Erasmus Plus program. All experts and respondents who participated in the study noted that without the impact of Tempus and Erasmus Plus project, it would hardly have been possible to achieve such a rapid modernization of higher education in the last 4 years, from 2017 to 2020, and especially with regard to the new and often very innovative areas of education, the wide introduction of the European credit transfer and accumulation system, the Bologna process principles and the joint programs. Since 2017, Erasmus Plus activities in Uzbekistan have become even more relevant to higher education reform, thanks to opening up of wide-scale development of international relations aimed on quality improvement of graduate training, qualification upgrading of academic staff, of higher education institutions, opening new higher education institutions, establishing of joint degree programs and joint faculties, introduction of new education directions and specialties. Now, this kind of cooperation would be even more productive if the participants could rely on quality of joint programs and joint degrees, mutual recognition of academic qualifications, which are among the principles of the Bologna process, to be adhered according to the concept of higher education development of Uzbekistan till 2030. Nowadays, we're at the start of the new Erasmus Plus program for the next 7 years, up to 2027, which provides more extended opportunities for cooperation of European universities with all countries of the world. So I would like to thank the Ministry of Higher and Secondary Specialized Education of Uzbekistan for all its efforts to ensure the efficient implementation of Erasmus Plus projects. I'm very certain that the program continues a significant contribution continues to be a significant contribution to the overall modernization in the higher education sector, to implementation of the government's priority objectives set for the higher education system. I also believe that these 2 seminar days that you are going into now will give you tools and models for further developing your respective institutions by establishing joint programs and thereby benefiting from each other's areas of strengths for your mutual benefit. Our colleagues from the National Erasmus Plus program, Plus office, are always at your disposal for more detailed information about all the cooperation opportunities with the European universities. And in fact, with this, I would like to wish you a very interesting 2 days of seminar. I hope it's going to be interesting, inspiring, and useful for all of you. It's important for us that this is a lot of exchanges, and I would like to very much thank you for your attention. Katar Ahmad. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the Ambassador, for your inspiring speech, for your encouraging words about the program and the role. Now it's a great pleasure for me to give a floor to the head of the State Inspectorate for Supervision of Education Quality under the Cabinet of Ministers of Uzbekistan, Professor Ulugbek Nigmatovich Tashkentbayev. We value very much the constructive support and cooperation with the State Inspectorate, which has been established with the all Erasmus Plus projects and actions in Uzbekistan. Marhamat, Ulugbek Nigmatovich.
Спасибо. Спасибо. Assalomu alaykum seminar ishtirokchilari, hurmatli elchi Charlotte Andrian, Annika Lindros xonim, Uzoqboy Shaynkulovich, Aziza Karimovna. Fursatdan foydalanib, yaqinlashib kelayotgan milliy bayramimiz Navruz bilan barchangizni muborakbod etmoqchiman. Shuningdek, mana Yevropa Ittifoqining O'zbekistondagi delegatsiyasi rahbari hurmatli elchi Charlotte Adrian xonimni mazkur lavozimiga tasdiqlaganliklari bilan tabriklayman. Ularga yurtimizdagi faoliyatlariga ulkan muvaffaqiyatlar tilab qolaman. Umid qilamizki, Yevropa Ittifoqi delegatsiyasi hamda Erasmus Plus bilan yaqindan hamkorlikda sizlarning samimiy qo'llab-quvvatlashingiz samarasi sifatida yurtimiz ta'lim tizimida yanada yuksak maqsadlarni amalga oshiramiz. Xabaringiz bor, mana so'nggi yillarda yurtimizda ta'lim tizimini isloh qilish masalasi davlat siyosatida dolzarb va muhim ahamiyat kasb etmoqda. Ayniqsa O'zbekistonda ta'lim tizimini modernizatsiyalash, ya'ni ta'lim tizimining mohiyatini tubdan o'zgartirish, uni rivojlangan mamlakatlarning eng yaxshi amaliyotlarini, yangi usullarni, ilg'or pedagogik texnologiyalarni o'rganish va qo'llash asosida rivojlantirishga katta urg'u berilmoqda. Bu borada Finlyandiya tajribasini chuqur o'rganish va uni tatbiq qilish bo'yicha davlat rahbarining ko'rsatmasiga binoan tizimli ishlar amalga oshirilmoqda. Hozirgi kunda o'sha tasdiqlangan yo'l xaritasi asosida biz ishlarni amalga oshiryapmiz. Jumladan Erasmus Plus ofisi tashabbusi bilan tashkil qilingan mazkur 2 kunlik seminar oliy ta'lim tizimida o'quv dasturlarini takomillashtirish bo'yicha o'zaro tajriba almashishga zamin yaratadi deb o'ylayman. Xususan xalqaro qo'shma o'quv dasturlarini ishlab chiqish talablari, O'zbekistonda oliy ta'lim muassasalari tomonidan qo'shma diplom berish jarayonlari, xalqaro qo'shma o'quv dasturlari uchun o'ziga xos sifat talablari haqidagi dolzarb ma'ruzalardan kerakli ma'lumotlarga ega bo'lamiz. Ma'lumot o'rnida shuni ta'kidlab o'tmoqchimanki, bugungi kunda O'zbekistonda qo'shma dastur fakultetlarda mashg'ulotlar 10 ta tilda amalga oshirilmoqda. Bu rus tili, ingliz tili, nemis tili, fransuz tili, hind, xitoy, koreys, turk, qozoq va o'zbek tillarida olib borilyapti. Shuningdek, qo'shma dasturlar asosida tahsil olayotgan talabalar soni jami 11.458 nafarni tashkil etadi. Bundan tashqari, qo'shma dasturlar asosida tahsil olayotgan talabalarga mashg'ulotlar olib borish uchun bugungi kunda 4.829 nafar professor o'qituvchilar jalb etilgan bo'lib, shundan 4.256 nafari bu xorijiy va 573 nafari mahalliy professor o'qituvchilardir. Shu bilan birgalikda albatta ilmiy salohiyat ham bevosita juda ham tajribali professor o'qituvchilar, ilmiy unvonga ega bo'lgan ustozlar jalb qilingan. Hozirda 20 tadan ortiq davlatlar bilan qo'shma dasturlar ishlab chiqilgan bo'lib, bunda endi Rossiya Federatsiyasi bilan jami 183 ta, 140 ta bakalavriat va 43 ta magistratura bo'yicha, Belarus Respublikasi bilan jami 110 ta, Xitoy Xalq Respublikasi bilan jami 9 ta, Janubiy Koreya, mana Yevropa davlatlari bilan bizlarda juda ham hozir ko'p qo'shma dasturlar va loyihalar amalga oshirilyapti. Shuningdek, mana Finlyandiya bilan hamkorligimizning ilk amaliy natijasi sifatida Toshkent davlat iqtisodiyot universiteti va Finlyandiyaning Turku amaliy fanlar universiteti hamkorlikdagi qo'shma ta'lim dasturlarini amalga oshirish bo'yicha kelishuvlarga erishildi. Unda talabalar 1+3 shaklida ta'lim oladilar. Dastur ishtirokchilari dastlabki 1 yil O'zbekistonda va keyingi 3 yil Finlyandiyada ta'lim olishadi. Mazkur hamkorlik masalalariga hokimliklar ham o'z hozirgi kunda hissalarini qo'yib kelmoqda. Jumladan mana Navoiy viloyati va Latviya o'rtasida o'zaro anglashuv memorandumlariga ko'ra Navoiy viloyatidan 10 nafar 9-sinf bitiruvchi yangi o'quv yilidan boshlab 3 yil davomida Finlyandiya oliy maktablarida tahsil oladi. Albatta, buni yuqorida aytib o'tildi, bizlar ham mana juda ham hozir Yevropa hamjamiyatiga integratsiya qilish bo'yicha katta ishlarni amalga oshiryapmiz. Bizning inspeksiyamiz hozir kuzatuvchi sifatida INKA agentlikka, sifat agentligiga a'zolikka kirdik. Shu bilan birgalikda mana keyingi qadamlar qilinyapti. Albatta, bu masalada Erasmus Plus dastur bizga katta yordam beryapti bu masalada. Mazkur seminar boshlangan samarali islohotlarimizning uzviy davomi bo'lib, oliy ta'lim tizimi jarayonlari xalqaro hamjamiyat bilan integratsiyasini ta'minlashda, xalqaro tajribalarni milliy ta'lim tizimiga singdirishda muhim o'rin tutadi. Umid qilamizki, boshlangan o'sha hamkorlik yo'nalishlarimiz uzoq va samarali davom etadi va bu borada sizning yurtimiz ta'lim tizimini rivojlantirishga hissangizni yuksak qadrlaymiz. Fursatdan foydalanib seminar tashkilotchilariga o'z minnatdorchiligimni bildirib, seminar ishiga muvaffaqiyatlar tilamoqchiman. E'tiborlar uchun rahmat.
Katta rahmat, Ulug'bek Nigmatovich. It's always a great pleasure to consider the significant support from the State Inspectorate and their role, their contribution to the overall aligning process to the Bologna process. Now, I would like to underline the role of the Ministry of Higher and Secondary Specialized Education in Uzbekistan, their contribution to the efficient implementation of all Erasmus Plus actions in Uzbekistan, and the personal contribution of Professor Uzoqboy Sheimkulovich Begimkulov. Marhamat, Uzoqboy aka.
Доброе утро, Его Превосходительство, госпожа посол, уважаемая Анника Сандбек-Линдрес, уважаемая Закаримова, Улугбек Нигматович, уважаемые участники семинара. Разрешите от имени Министерства высшего и среднего специального образования Республики Узбекистан поблагодарить организаторов данного мероприятия, тема которого является для нас очень актуальной. Нас радует, что в данном семинаре присутствует новый посол Европейского Союза в Узбекистане, госпожа Шарлотта Адриан. От имени министерства поздравляем ее назначением и желаем успехов в работе. Дорогие участники семинара, для системы высшего образования Узбекистана последние 4 года стал периодом коренных преобразований и принятых важных решений по улучшению качества высшего образования, что многократно повысило актуальность и немаловажную роль интенсивного развивающегося международного сотрудничества. Одну из важных ветвей ее составляет программа Erasmus+, в которой на сегодняшний день задействовано в общей сложности более 65 вузов республики во всех регионах республики. Важно отметить, что высшие учебные заведения Узбекистана принимают активное участие в программе Erasmus+, так как она является самой крупномасштабной программой сотрудничества не только с европейскими странами, но и с соседними республиками Центральной Азии и другими регионами мира. Благодаря проектам Erasmus+, вузы Узбекистана смогли разработать ряд совместных магистерских программ, создать совместные факультеты и уникальные научные лаборатории, что внесло весомый вклад в повышение международного признания и рейтинга высших учебных заведений страны. Актуальность программы Erasmus+, многообразная деятельность и возможности для долгосрочного сотрудничества созвучны и служат реализации целей, обозначенных в концепции развития высшего образования Узбекистана до 2030 года, а также недавно принятых закона об образовании и закона о науке. Внедрение в рамках совместных проектов передовые технологии преподавания, созданы образовательные платформы, доступ к образовательным ресурсам европейских университетов послужил весомым подспорьем при переходе всей системы образования на онлайн-формат в связи с пандемией. Виртуальная мобильность и комбинированная мобильность дали возможность повышать квалификацию преподавателям, участвовать в совместных публикациях и продолжить совместную научную работу исследователям в университетах страны. В настоящее время продолжается работа по расширению охвата молодежи высшим образованием путем увеличения количества новых высших учебных заведений в республике и открытия филиалов престижных университетов мира. В настоящее время общее количество вузов достигло 132. За последние 4 года в республике организовано 55 новых высших учебных заведений, включая 19 филиалов зарубежных университетов, 9 негосударственных вузов. Большим подспорьем в решении задач по открытию филиалов престижных зарубежных университетов, создание совместных факультетов и программ, преподавание предметов на английском языке является устойчивое партнерство и связи, устанавливающиеся в рамках программ Европейского Союза. особо весомый вклад вносит проект Erasmus+ в целом опыт европейских стран по внедрению СТК и переходу к кредитно-модульной системе организации учебного процесса. В целях дальнейшего расширения сферы подготовки кадров для отраслей экономики введены заочные и вечерние формы обучения. Кроме этого, мы начали работать по подготовке кадров в рамках совместных образовательных программ в сотрудничестве с зарубежным вузом по схеме двойной диплом 2+2, 3+1 с возможностью выдачи диплома зарубежного вуза. В связи с этим актуальность данного семинара очевидна, и мы надеемся на приобретение необходимых знаний в этой области. С учетом общемировых тенденций развития высшего образования, включая и европейский опыт, была разработана концепция развития образования в Республике Узбекистан до 2030 года. Для нас актуальность программы Erasmus+ заключается еще и в том, что ее разносторонняя деятельность и предоставляемая возможность долгосрочного сотрудничества созвучна и служит целям, обозначенным в данной концепции. Министерство высшего и среднего специального образования Республики Узбекистан поддерживает деятельность программы Erasmus+ и высоко ценит ее значительный вклад в гибкость и своевременное конструктивное реагирование на все правительственные решения по дальнейшему совершенствованию системы высшего образования в Республике Узбекистан. В заключение я хотел бы еще раз поблагодарить всех организаторов данного совещания, Национальный офис Erasmus+ в Узбекистане, роль которого важна для обеспечения эффективной реализации программы, а также внедрения и распространения достигнутых результатов. Хочу особо отметить Национальный офис Erasmus+, который помогает и быстро реагирует на все запросы и потребности вузов. Желаю оживленных дискуссий и плодотворного семинара. Спасибо за внимание.
Thank you very much for encouraging words about the role of Erasmus Plus program and the impact of the program on the overall modernization process in Uzbekistan. It's evident that and national impact study have been already finalized. We would like to present it with the support of the EU delegation and the Ministry of Higher and Secondary Specialized Education, possibly in the coming months. And now it's my great pleasure to give a floor to my colleague, to our invited expert from Finland, Ms. Annika Sandberg-Lindros from the Finnish Agency for Education. I would like to repeat again that she has a professional career in internationalization with a focus on transnational partnerships, joint degrees, quality assurance, and capacity building. She is a leader of a global team at the Finnish National Agency for Education. Please, Annika, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Aziza, and good morning, Madam Ambassador, representatives of national Uzbek authorities, and dear colleagues in higher education and internationalization. Just to check that you can hear me well. Yes.
We can. Yes.
Perfect. So before we go into to the content of today, I just also want to continue a little bit on the presentation that Aziza already kindly did. So I have always been fascinated by trying to overcome obstacles preventing new knowledge development and skills development, and looking for ways to make higher education more flexible to answering future needs of competencies for solving, for instance, global challenges. So I have been working particularly with joint study programs and had the opportunity to work both in Finland with Finnish universities who have participated for a very long time in joint programs, and also at the Agency for Education and Culture in Brussels as an evaluator of Erasmus Mundus proposals. And furthermore, also with the Swedish Foundation for Internationalization, they have a funding scheme for joint degrees between Swedish and non-European universities. I have also been evaluating proposals for the Nordic Council of Ministers. There is a regional scheme called the Nordic Master. And within the European Association for International Education, I have been very active as a trainer on joint programs and also in one of the expert communities on joint degrees. And in addition to this, I have already had the great pleasure of offering several technical assistant missions also on joint degrees, and last year was the first virtual one. So it's always very interesting to see how this will work out. The change from previous year was that we are now doing this during 2 days, and I hope this will increase also the potential for concentration and following, because there is a lot of information. So it's good to have 1 day to a little bit digest what we have discussed. So during the first hour before the first break, we are going to look a little bit at the background. So what was the political development that led to this introduction of the idea of starting to develop international study programs? So what is that strategic interest? And also, why are higher education institutions interested, and students and staff? So what are the benefits of joint programs? I also want to try to make it as interactive as possible. So during these 2 days, we will have polling, so kind of virtual quiz and polling exercises, and also group discussions and questions and answers after the presentations. First of all, to look at the joint programs as the most integrated form for internationalization. So as you know, internationalization has started with study abroad, individual students moving from one country to another, then developing into academic exchange, where you have mutual agreements on learning agreements on which studies to pursue in the other country. The next level would be to have a study program with integrated elements that are implemented in another country. But in this case, still, it's one institution that is developing the program, owning the program, and also issuing the degree in the end. And the following level could be then called a dual degree program or double degree program. Here you have a cooperation around the study program that has been developed jointly, but you still have separate admission, which means that you have an agreement of sending students to another partner institution, and then you offer 2 degrees, but you still you take students out of the ones you have already admitted to your own institution. And then finally, the joint program model that we're going to discuss today is the one where you base the whole program on some kind of external demand for learning or knowledge. So you set learning outcomes based on needs in the labor market or in research in society. You look for partners based on their complementary strengths, their research strengths, and you develop together through very close collaboration between the academics, a joint curricula, and you have a joint selection and admission procedure. So you admit students from outside of the partnership as well. And then also you agree on structures for quality assurance and you have a joint administration of the students from the beginning to the end of the program. And also for the joint program, you can, in the end, you can issue either a single diploma, so it could be a joint degree, or you can issue several diplomas when it's a multiple degree. And we need to start with definitions, but the most important thing regarding definitions is to say that there are hundreds of definitions, because each country might have their own definition, and UNESCO has their own, the European Commission has their own, the Bologna European Higher Education Area has their own. So the most important thing is that when you meet your partners, the partner institutions you're going to work with, that you make sure that you talk about the same things. And here I am now using definitions that have been agreed within the European Higher Education Area and also within the European Union programs. And I'm going to use this throughout the training course. And here we understand the joint program as an integrated curriculum, coordinated and offered by several institutions, leading either to a multiple or a joint degree. And here, in this course, by a joint degree, we mean one single paper, one single document, where you have then the names and stamps and signatures of all the institutions that are involved. A multiple degree is then separate diplomas, separate degrees issued by separate diplomas. And if you have 2 degrees, it's a double degree. I introduced a picture of an iceberg. You know this saying in English, it's the tip of the iceberg, which means that in this case, the joint degrees, even though there has been a very strong political focus, for instance, within Erasmus Mundus, on the joint degree, so on kind of reaching one paper for the student in the end, it's still a very small minority, or at least of the European institutions, that do award a joint degree. For instance, this year there was a study on the Erasmus Mundus programs, and I'm going to talk about it later as well, showing that only 1/3 of the Erasmus Mundus programs are issuing joint degrees, and these have been working since 2004, so they have had a considerable time. And I also want to point out that issuing one diploma or several diplomas, it does not affect the quality of the curricula, of course. So we have been also arguing during many years already that there is not a need for such a focus on the one single diploma. And in some cases, it might be even better for the student to have diplomas that are recognizable in different countries where they have studied. Then I wanted to present briefly a case study so that we also know what we are talking about in this course. So what kind of a model of joint degrees is the kind of most integrated form for joint programs? This is now an example of an Erasmus Mundus, but it could be any joint program. And as you know, in the program later today, there will also be a presentation of the Tashkent University of Economics program with Finland. So there will be another case later on. This is just to demonstrate one example of a joint program. In this case, it's a master in research and innovation in higher education. And this is very relevant also for us, for the participants. So here it's really about studying the knowledge triangle, and also with the objective then to produce future experts, managers, policymakers, researchers. And you have 4 European universities, as you can see: Austria, Finland, Germany, Hungary, and then Beijing Normal University in China. What's interesting here as well is that you have research-based universities, and then the third one, the German university, is a university of applied science. So here it's then a program that is completely developed together. So these four, initially the four European universities, set the learning outcomes for the entire program. They have set joint admission requirements and a joint process for admitting students, where academics from the different partners participate in scoring the students and doing the final selection of students. So they have a completely integrated curricula where each partner is offering part of the curriculum according to their competence and strengths. And all those components are fully recognized by the other partners, and also jointly agreed assessment mechanisms for the students. They also have then 4 different specialization tracks, and based on the specialization track, the student will do their final thesis. So you can see it's research, leadership and management, institutional research, learning and teaching. And here is a picture of their mobility scheme. This is now very complicated. So you have obviously much easier mobility schemes as well. And they have developed this during several years, but you can see that here the students start their first semester in Austria all together. Then they move to Finland for the second semester. They have also included an internship. And even at the Finnish National Agency for Education in my global team, we have had interns coming in from this program, which has been very useful, both for us, but also for them. And then in the first part of the third semester, they go either to China or India, and then they come back to Europe to finish their master's thesis. And actually, in the end, they have different options depending on which specialization they choose. So if we go back here, so for the German, obviously then they will get 1 degree from the university where they finish, and they implement their master degree thesis. And it took some time also. I know there was a lot of discussion about whether it was possible or not to award a joint degree between a research-based university and a university of applied science, because in many countries there is still quite a distinctive divide between these two. However, after some discussion, that was possible. So I think that's also something that shows the way of the dynamics of higher education, that you can, if needed, if the learning outcomes are needed and competencies are needed, you can also look for more flexible ways of even issuing a double degree between research-based university and applied science. So then we're moving into the background and strategic interests and trends. And here we thought that we would ask you, now the participants, to do free associations. So when you hear the Bologna process, I know that unfortunately Uzbekistan is not yet a signatory country, but you have been working a lot, also reading from the Erasmus Plus impact study, working on the Bologna process related reforms. So I give the word now to the NEO colleagues.
Assalomu alaykum. Demak, ushbu so'rovnoma bizda mana bu chatda ochib ko'rishingiz mumkin bo'ladi. Menticumda kod keltirilgan. Iltimos shu kodni kiritib o'z javoblaringizni yozishingizni iltimos qilamiz. Jo'natingchi, bitta ham javob beramiz, tamam mı? Hop, yozing. Jo'natdingizmi?
Yo'q.
Oh, I need also to stop share now so that you can share the results, huh?
Albatta. Ko'rinyaptimi ekranimiz?
Da.
Okay, thank you so much. So we can see here mobility, quality assurance, and it's still moving. Unification, harmonization, educational processes, employment opportunities, yes. So maybe I will then continue. Oh, there it's still moving, huh? Capacity building. I was reading in the impact report of Erasmus and Tempus that there has been a lot of work related to quality assurance, also to qualification frameworks, I think, quality assurance self-assessment in institutions. And also now it's here, ECTS, so the credit transfer system, globalization, yes. And one very kind of fundamental aim of the Bologna process is also something I understood Uzbekistan has been moving towards because of Bologna, which is the 3-cycle degree system. So maybe it's here, educational processes. Thank you so much. It's very interesting. It's always, I am always fascinated by that there is so much awareness of the Bologna process outside of the EU countries, and sometimes even inside the EU countries, people don't realize what the Bologna process has actually brought about. So just a brief recap of the Bologna process. So it started in 1999 with the aim of creating a comparable, compatible, and coherent higher education system, or systems in Europe. And what's interesting with the Bologna process is that it's completely voluntary, and it is being supported simultaneously by funding schemes by the European Union. So there are ministerial conferences, normally every second year. Between the meetings of ministers, there is the Bologna follow-up group. And as you know, Uzbekistan is not yet a member, but you have still implemented many of these reforms already in your higher education system. And it was very interesting to read about the Erasmus Plus impact study. And it's quite fascinating that after 23 years, already 49 participating states are part of the Bologna process. And why are we talking about the Bologna process? Because this has been a very strong driver also for joint study programs. And because, of course, these are really the ultimate test of the harmonization and the instrument for structural harmonization. I mean, how can you develop joint study programs between countries if you don't have any kind of harmonization or same language that you talk in terms of higher education? So you really have direct links to several action lines in Bologna, So of course, the increased mobility, the increased quality assurance, the 3 cycles, and joint programs have been mentioned in these ministerial communiques every time. There has been particular development related to quality assurance, because when the program was suddenly jointly developed between 2 or 3 countries, and there were still single national quality assurance procedures, it became very complicated. Therefore, in Yerevan 2015, the ministers accepted something that was called European approach to quality assurance of joint programs. So nowadays there is a particular principle of European quality assurance criteria that can be used to accredit joint programs in Europe or in EU countries. And as you know, there is the Bologna Policy Forum for dialogue with non-European countries, and here Uzbekistan has been also participating. Here you can see, as part of the Bologna process, there is something called Bologna Implementation Report, being always prepared before the ministerial meetings with lots of different statistics. This is the latest one where you can see the percentage of institutions participating in joint programs. So you can see that, looking roughly at the map, that the majority of EU countries participate, more than half of the institutions in the EU countries participate in joint programs. But then if you look at the number of institutions awarding joint degrees, so now I'm talking again about the 1 diploma. So here you can see it's considerably less, which means that most of them award multiple degrees at the end of the program. You can see that joint programs also really is a global trend within internationalization of higher education. This EAIE barometer gathers data from practitioners within internationalization. And in the latest barometer 2018, gathered data from 1,290 higher education institutions, representing 2,300 individuals. And here 50% mentioned that they were working on joint or multiple degrees, and that there was also significant progress in 1/3 of the institutions. Another one is the Global Survey on Internationalization of Universities. This is also based on input from 126 countries. And this 5th global survey is now the most comprehensive collection and analysis of primary data on internationalization of higher education. And here again, the institutions pointed out that important instruments are student mobility, strategic partnerships, and research collaboration. And joint degrees actually are linked to all of these 3. There was also, in preparation for the Erasmus Plus program, a study for the European Parliament led by Professor Hans de Witt from Boston College of Higher Education. And this was based on perceptions by 180 experts in higher education. And the outcome was that the future higher education system should be capable of producing global citizens and professionals respecting other cultures, contributing to development of knowledge economies and socially inclusive societies, and then better positioned to address global issues. And one enabler to reach this, so one prerequisite for reaching this goal, is the development of international joint programs, so that the students can really see also the academic cultures and different perspectives of looking at a particular subject field, and then also move from one country to another with automatic credit recognition. Another or another trend is that more and more higher education institutions produce institutional guidelines for their academics to support academics to start developing joint programs. And then furthermore, there are regional initiatives like, for instance, the Nordic Masters that I mentioned, also Franco-German University, and there was something called Campus Asia also as a response to Erasmus Mundus. And of course, in addition to Bologna, there is the large amount of funding schemes that have been supporting joint programs. And you are familiar in Uzbekistan with the capacity building projects, and also the impact study mentioned that you have had several curriculum development projects. And these, of course, is one step towards developing a joint curriculum as well. Erasmus Mundus has been there since 2004. The new European Union flagship program really is the European universities that are transnational alliances. And also here, the long-term aim is really systematic mobility, recognition of learning periods, and possibly even a European degree, so legal status of a European degree. And here, yes, I mentioned, so it's really the aim of this transformation agenda for higher education, where the legal status of a European degree would make it much easier, of course, to deliver joint degrees between European universities. So this is very much like a long-term vision. So certainly the European Union countries are not there yet. So there is a lot of work to do by national ministries to proceed towards this vision. I wanted to, on the issue of automatic recognition, it's already taking place in some of the European, there is, for instance, a cluster network of universities of science and technology. And they have been working with joint programs during 15 years since the beginning of Erasmus Mundus. They have now started with automatic recognition, which means that they recognize the bachelor level degrees of the partner institutions that are in this cluster network, which means that it already makes it easier for students from one university to automatically gain access to a master program in another university in that cluster. So then moving to the final topic before the break, 10:30, is now discussing a little bit why we should do this, or why you should do it. And there are again two questions. The first one is whether joint programs are mentioned in your own institutional strategy. So we can start with that one. So I give the word to Kutrakon again, please.
Katta rahmat. Demak, navbatdagi so'rovnoma uchun yana kodni yubordim. Iltimos, kiritishingizni so'rayman, javoblarni. Demak, ekranda javoblarni ko'rishimiz mumkin. Barchaga ko'rinyaptimi ekrandagi? Ko'rinyaptimi? Rahmat.
Yes, at least I can see it. So it's interesting to see that there are also institutions with institutional guidelines for joint programs. And also after this training, it's good to go back and check if you're not sure. It would be also interesting to know whether you have had any kind of discussion between the institutions on these national guidelines when you have developed them, or is that something you have done just on your own?
Keyingi savolga o'tishni aytsalar, Anika xonim, keyingisiga o'tamiz.
Yes, let's do that. So the second question is then that we know that joint programs are prioritized, but why do you think it's important to participate?
Marhamat, keyingi savolni ham kodini kiritdim. Sizlardan iltimos javoblaringizni kiritsanglar. Aktiv ishtirok etishingizni so'raymiz.
For the national guideline, or for the guidelines, we did in Finland produce first kind of national guidelines, and then all institutions could adopt those guidelines later on for their own use. So that's also one possibility of proceeding. So we had in this Menti several alternatives. So the first one is it's guaranteed credit transfer for students. Second, international visibility for the program, providing new unique learning to students, better quality assurance, new pedagogical approaches, and better employability. So this is looking good. I think this providing new unique learning to students should really be one of the main arguments. So somebody is saying there is no way to choose three, but thank you if you chose at least one.
Katta rahmat. Demak, ekranni to'xtataman o'rtoqlashishni. Demak, taqdimotni davom ettiramiz.
Thank you. Yes. So what have most European universities thought on this question is that for the students, as you also said, one of the main benefits is this guaranteed credit transfer. So as opposed to the normal learning agreement and credit mobility, where you not always know that you get recognition for your studies, here there is automatic recognition because academics have been looking at the curricula from the start. So it's really this coherent learning path that is pre-planned. And also it's combining strengths of higher education institutions. So it's not always easy for a student to know if a student is going on an exchange, which university to choose and what they offer. So it's a lot of work also for students to look up the different universities. And one distinctive feature is also the increased employability. So there was a so-called REDEEM project that I introduced a link here on the material that resulted, it was a big survey sent out to employers, resulting that they noticed actually that graduates from joint programs had higher salary levels after graduation than the ones from national programs. And also that these degrees are recognized by multiple systems because they have linkages to legislation in different countries. So it's easier also for employers to recognize the diplomas if there is a multiple diploma. Because of the mobility, maybe usually also quite tight mobility structure, the students become quite resilient. They develop transversal skills, soft skill, intercultural skills. Of course, improved language skills and studying in multicultural environments as well. And for the higher education institutions, one driver, at least, is really this opportunity to provide strategically relevant educational offer with automatically integrated international components. And also that they can, through joint programs, provide new study programs, unique study programs that they are not capable of providing on their own. So they need partners to be able to offer that learning. Recognition and visibility and attractiveness for the whole study program in the eyes of the students as well. And a very important aspect when listening to institutions involved in joint programs is that they get this quality benchmarking with their peers, with institutions on the same level as themselves. So they really get the chance to look at how you are running a study program from the very beginning of when you start promoting the program, intake of students, assessment, follow-up, quality assurance, learning materials, methodology. So it's very comprehensive for staff. And of course, network strategic partnerships, more international students. It's also then a potential recruitment pool for of course, if you have a bachelor program, then you can recruit those students to master and PhD. And you integrate also your programs with private sector. You can discuss quality assurance and really harmonization also of administrative practices. In some cases, joint programs can be also a good instrument for sharing resources. If you have a very specialist field, for instance, within technology or medicine or some, then all the institutions don't have to invest in very expensive equipment, for instance. So you can send students from one country or one partner to another and thereby share the resources. And for staff, I already mentioned actually previously, but it's a very effective and beneficial type of holistic peer learning. So you look at new pedagogical approaches, learning and assessment materials, and you work together for a long time, not only for one student coming on an exchange, but it's really throughout the whole program. And you learn and agree and share best practices on joint student administration as well. And of course, it's also about teaching in foreign languages and teaching in multicultural environments. And now we have reached the end of the first component of the session. So discussing background, introduction, a case study, some definitions, and also reasons for entering joint programs. So I think we have now a few minutes for questions or clarifications on this section before moving then into the break.
Marhamat, savollar bo'lsa.
Hello, Dr. Anita Sundbeck. I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
This joint degree and double degree programs are, these new programs for all higher educational system in Uzbekistan. And I personally, even our university, I know a few even universities, they're not quite sure when we signed and when the students, let's say Uzbekistan students, they go to other university abroad and they study there 1 year or 2 years on joint degree or in double degree, let's say in double degree. What kind of degree do they receive as a bachelor's degree there? Or is just, it says a certificate that they studied 2 years? How it look like, I mean, that certificate?
Thank you so much for the question. So that is something that you have to discuss with your partner. So before sending the student to the partner institution, then you need to compare the curricula and ask your academics to compare the curricula and see if I understood your question correctly. I see, Aziza, you wanted to comment?
It would be nice if the person will represent the university and what is his position.
Okay, so if we can kindly ask in for the coming questions, if you can also present yourself and the institution you represent.
Are you asking me? Sorry.
Yes, please. Yes.
I work as a head of international department at Samarkand branch of Tashkent State Economics University.
Okay.
So did I understand you correctly that you are referring to double degree programs and you are not sure about the diploma or the certificate and the value of that?
Yes, actually, yes, we signed already and students are studying in these programs, but we're not quite sure what kind of degrees they will receive when they will graduate at those universities. I mean, if you have some samples, it will be great during your presentations to show how it will look like exactly.
Yeah, what I have as a handout for this training course is a template for the contract that you sign. I mean, you have already signed your contract, but
absolutely,
this is one aspect. It's very important to discuss beforehand with your partners to think about, because it's also in the interest of the student. It's to be kind of cautious of the student's right to get a recognized diploma, and this is important, of course, for the reputation of your institution as well. So it's really important to discuss, to look really at the diploma. So what will it look like and who will issue it, and discuss with the recognition authorities in your country and in the other country as well. So
Thank
it's of
you.
course, yeah.
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 Absolutely, thank you. But with your experience with Finland and other countries, you may have some samples, right? Maybe you can share a little later in your slides.
Yeah, yes, well, we have samples, but the problem with samples is people always ask for samples, but you know that diplomas are very closely linked to national legislation. So it doesn't really help if I share samples. And I can tell you, for instance, in Finland, we have quite a silly requirement that we still need to issue diplomas in Swedish and Finnish. So you know, we can issue a joint diploma in English with stamps and signatures and reference to legislation in, for instance, 3 countries. But we still have to give the Finnish and Swedish diploma because it's in the law. So every country has kind of small particular features like this. So I think it's really something you have to discuss in your national context also. So what is possible for you and what is possible for that other country you are working with?
I understood.
But I will look for tomorrow. I can look for some links because there are already templates out there. If you check on the, you can just Google. But anyway, I can get some links for you for tomorrow. But remember, you can never copy them. So you should check. You should check with your national authorities and the authorities in your partner country.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Annika.
Any other questions, please?
Yes, I have a question.
Marhamat.
In English,
My
name is Alisher Abidjanov. I'm from Uzbekistan State World Languages University. So my question is following. I understand question comes from our context, from the Uzbek context. I understand why joint degree programs needs to our universities, because we would like to improve quality of our education and so and so. But if partner university from the Western countries, what their interest to have a joint degree with, let's say, with university which is not that level which they have. Because we try to establish joint degrees with leading universities in the world, but we have the big interest in to have them with them, but leading universities in the world, they are not very interested to have joint degree programs with the universities which doesn't fit to their standards. So this is some problem which we face in our activity. Do you have any recommendations or suggestions?
Yes, thank you again for the question. And I guess you know this better than me, but I mean, I guess you have to be pragmatic also in the way, first of all, looking, when you start looking for partners, then look maybe, you know, at your own level and a bit higher, maybe not for the highest ranked universities, and it's to their detriment if they don't know that, understand that they can diversify their partnership as well. But I mean, that would be a start to also look regionally maybe, or to look for some peers. And also, I'm sure that you have scientific fields where you're particularly strong. So look within those fields, start looking. And then the second option, of course, is also to have the capacity building project, I mean, a curriculum development project as a start. So to develop the curricula, even with a university where you feel that you are not on the same level, or I don't know, research standard level or something, but that is also already a start. And then after some time, you can move into the joint study program. But of course, that is a concern for any university, actually, you know, who is contacting Oxford or, you know, MIT or something. So I think it's, I'm sure that you will find universities in other countries who share interests with you.
Sorry, Ahmed Yusupov from Tashkent University of Information Technology.
Yes, hello.
My question, do you have any recommendation for find the partner university from Europe, for example? It is very important. Search partners. If you have any recommendations, please.
Yes, I think when you discuss or reflect on partners for joint study programs, I think it's probably
Yes.
better to start first with let's say with credit mobility. So for instance, the Erasmus Plus international credit mobility. So start with some dialogue and staff meetings of staff, and then from that you work onwards, because I think very few universities will start joint programs with somebody they don't know at all from the beginning. So we are going to discuss that later also when you start the development. So what to think about, because joint programs is really a question of trust and very integrated collaboration. So I would recommend that you start by just kind of small steps, and then when you get to know each other, you decide, okay, this is a partner I trust, and we share, we share certain interests, and we have complementing administrative practice and all that, so we can move forward. And again, I think starting with your bilateral Erasmus or any other partners you have in bilateral collaboration is a good way. And maybe Aziz, I don't know if you have anything to add on the partner search side.
Actually, we will provide this recommendation during the information session. But now the most important and reliable and the most efficient way is to look for partners through the Erasmus Plus project results platform. You can search by subjects, by the previous project, by relevance to your profile. And I have to stop accepting the questions now because we have to go to the break. Annika, thank you very much for this informative and interactive introduction session. Thank you for those who asked interesting questions and useful for the other people. Now the moderation will go to Kudratxon. Marhamat Kudratxon. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So we will take a break now until 11:15.
Yes, and Kudratxon, he will explain how we will proceed.
Katta rahmat, hurmatli tinglovchilar, hurmatli ishtirokchilar. Demak, boya Gulshodaxon yozganlaridek birinchi iltimosimiz o'z ismlaringizni lotin alifbosida yozib qo'ysanglar, keyinchalik biz foydalanishimiz uchun juda ham qulay bo'ladi. Va 15 minutlik tanaffusga chiqqanimizda iltimos kanaldan chiqib ketmanglar, shu kanalda davom ettiramiz. Faqatgina mikrofoninglarni o'chirib qo'ysanglar bo'ldi. 15 minutdan keyin o'z vaqtida onlayn bo'lishinglarni iltimos qilamiz. Katta rahmat. Barcha ishtirokchilarga xayrli kun. O'ylaymizki, ishtirokchilar biz bilan birga tanaffusdan so'ng navbatni yana Annika xonimga beramiz. O'zlarining taqdimotlari bilan o'rtoqlashish uchun mana ekranda ko'rib turibmiz. Marhamat.
Thank you so much, Kudrakon. I hope you enjoyed your leg stretcher and short break. So for the coming 30 minutes, we will look more closely into the legal environment of joint study programs, starting with a brief introduction of which aspects to consider, and then with an input from the head of higher education department on the Uzbek context and national legal framework here or there. And yeah, what is fascinating about international joint programs is that this is something that universities and higher education institutions have been doing for more than a decade. And as your representative from the ministry also mentioned, that you have thousands of students and staff involved, and there is still no international legislation. So everything is national, as you know. Education-related laws are all set at national level. And that's what makes it a little bit challenging, but also fascinating. And there are lots of kind of problems to solve. So you get to be innovative. But it's also important to be aware of this because of the right of the students. So a little bit also going back to the question we had in the morning before the break about the diploma. So it's really important to clarify these issues before you take in the students and before they study, and so that you really know what they also receive in the end. And it's something that is recognized and linked to your own legislation. So check the national legislation first of all, and then also institutional guidelines, particularly in countries where you have wide university autonomy. Sometimes you have actually universities themselves deciding on issues like tuition fees or admission requirements. So here is just again some links to information sources that might be interesting for you. There is the Eurydice document on financing and tuition fees within European higher education. So also when you start your joint program, there is kind of a checklist. So when you look at a partner, of course, it's important for you to check that the partner is legally a higher education institution, so that it has been approved by the national authorities as a higher education institution. And does that partner have the right to award the degree that you are planning to work on together? And do they have the right to award master degrees? Do they have the right to award PhD degrees? And check that there is national evidence for that. And then the third thing would be to check if there is some particular legislation in that country on international joint degree awarding. Then you have different quality assurance systems in each country. So some countries require that a program needs to be accredited or approved by the national authorities before they can start. And there is a publication called Implementing Joint Degrees in the Erasmus Mundus Action, where they have produced maps. So I'm going to show you a picture from that publication, and the link is also here. Here you can see the situation regarding accreditation of master programs. So you can see that there is accreditation by national authorities in the pink countries here, and for instance, accreditation by accreditation agencies in the red ones. And you also have a mixed system. So for instance, in Finland, we have wide autonomy of universities. So they get the right to award a particular degree. And within that degree, they can then award together with international students, international institutions. They have national curricula or international curricula. So they have the autonomy to set up their own programs within a particular degree. They don't need to ask permission because it's already in the law. But then there is external quality assurance coming in to look at the whole institution and their quality assurance system. So it's a combination. And you can see from this map that the picture is very diversified and colorful. So this is what I meant also with the diploma issue and everything. So we still live in a situation where all these rules and laws and regulations are nationally set. And yeah, well, I already mentioned. So in addition to that accreditation, then important also to check admission requirements and tuition fee requirements for the partner institutions. It's also interesting to see here in the same publication, there is a map showing which countries have existing legal frameworks. It means that they have some kind of law or some mentioning of joint programs in their laws. And here you see that it's now quite widespread that you have some legislation on joint programs in your higher education policy. And if you compare this, for instance, there was a study by the European University Association 2002, so well, it's 20 years ago, but already at that time, there was almost no legislation. So there has been a big change in European countries developing legislation on joint programs. So that was a very brief introduction, but as I mentioned in the beginning, since everything is national and nationally regulated, it's very important to get now the input from the head of higher education and from national authorities in Uzbekistan, so that you get a picture of what is possible in your own country and what is the regulation and rules.
Katta rahmat. Demak, so'z Abduvor akaga.
Rahmat. Assalomu alaykum, hurmatli seminar ishtirokchilari, hurmatli tashkilotchilar. Bu seminar tashkil etilganidan avvalambor oliy ta'lim tizimi bo'yicha minnatdorchilik bildiramiz. Bu yerda o'sha qo'shma dasturlarning ahamiyati va milliy huquqiy asoslari. Endi bu qo'shma dasturlarni dastlabki bizda joriy etilishi boshlanishi 2018-yil davlatimiz rahbari tomonidan tasdiqlangan qarorda topshiriq ketgandi. Shu asosda oliy ta'lim muassasalari xorijiy yetakchi oliy ta'lim muassasalari bilan hamkorlikda qo'shma ta'lim dasturlari asosida bakalavr va magistraturani O'zbekistonda o'sha kadrlar tayyorlash sohalari orqada qolayotgan yo'nalishlarda asosan respublikaning iqtisodiyotining rivojlanishini, istiqbollarini hisobga qo'ygan holda kadrlar tayyorlash rejalashtirilgan va bu jarayon asosiy maqsadi demak xorijiy yetakchi oliy ta'lim muassasalari, professor o'qituvchilari, xorijiy yetakchi oliy ta'lim muassasalarining o'sha salohiyatidan foydalangan holda respublikamiz uchun O'zbekiston yoshlarini o'sha xorijiy oliy ta'lim muassasalarining havosidan nafas olgan holda tayyorlash maqsad qilib olingan. Va shu sababli 2018-yilda dastlabki bosqichda 16 ta qo'shma ta'lim dasturlari tashkil etilgandi. Bugungi kunda bu demak 22 ta davlat xorijiy davlatlarning yetakchi oliy ta'lim muassasalaridan o'sha 58 ta qo'shma ta'lim dasturlari mavjud. Bu 58 tadan demak magistraturada adashmasam 95 ta bakalavriat ta'lim yo'nalishida 79 ta magistratura mutaxassislari bo'yicha. Endi yuqorida aytib o'tildi, oliy ta'lim muassasalari yetakchi davlatlar, qo'shni davlatlar asosan o'sha Rossiya, Belorussiya, Yevropaning boshqa davlatlari, Osiyo davlatlari, umuman oliy ta'lim muassasalarini imkoniyatiga, ularning hamkorlarini salohiyatiga qarab bu tashkil etilgan. Bizda huquqiy asoslar, demak asosiy prezident ikkita davlatimiz rahbari tomonidan tasdiqlangan prezident qarorlari bor. Demak 3775 2018-yil va 2019-yilda 359 prezident qarorlari tasdiqlangan. Shu yerda qo'shma ta'lim dasturlarini tashkil etish, uni shakllariga oliy ta'lim muassasalariga to'g'ridan-to'g'ri ruxsat berilgan va vazirlik tomonidan bugungi kunda Respublikamiz davlat oliy ta'lim muassasalarida qo'shma ta'lim dasturlarini qo'shma ta'lim dasturlarida ta'lim tashkil etish bo'yicha Vazirlar Mahkamasining qaror loyihasi tayyorlanib, ta'lim sifati inspeksiyasi bilan birgalikda ishlab chiqildi va Vazirlar Mahkamasiga kiritilgan. Bu tasdiqlanish arafasida jarayon umumiy holatda oliy ta'lim muassasalarini o'ziga berilgan vakolat, ya'niki bizni oliy ta'lim muassasamiz xorijiy hamkor oliy ta'lim muassasasi bilan kelishuv, o'sha shartnomalar, memorandumlarni imzolaydi va bu yerda yo'nalishlarni va aniq shakllarni kelishib oladi. Masalan, bakalavriat 2+2 yoki 3+1, magistraturada 1+1, ayrim mutaxassislarda hattoki o'sha 3+1, ya'ni semestr bo'yicha, ya'ni 1,5+1,5 o'sha bir semestr xorijda, 3 semestr O'zbekistonda o'qiydigan shakllari bor. Bu har bir oliy ta'lim muassasasi o'zining xususiyatidan, ta'lim yo'nalishini, mutaxassisligi xususiyatidan kelib chiqqan holda o'zaro kelishib oladi. Va vazirlik tomonidan pozitsiya qo'yilganki, bakalavriatda kamida bir o'quv yili, magistraturada kamida bir semestr xorijiy o'sha hamkor oliy ta'lim muassasasida bo'lishi kerak. O'qish jarayoni o'sha joyda tashkil etilishi kerak. Demak, bizda o'sha 2020-yil boshidan xabarlaringiz bor. Endi hamma joyda bu muammo bo'ldi. Mana pandemiya sababli 2020-yilda borishi rejalashtirilgan magistraturada ayniqsa nimalar, talabalar ko'p qismi bora olmadi. Bu yerda o'sha holatda ham oliy ta'lim muassasalari hamkor oliy ta'lim muassasasi bilan kelishgan holda ta'lim jarayonini o'sha onlayn ko'rinishda tashkil etdi. Ya'niki o'sha semestrda yoki o'sha o'quv yilida xorijiy oliy ta'lim, hamkor oliy ta'lim muassasasi bu jarayonlarni, dars jarayonlarini to'liq tashkil etdi va o'zaro kelishuvlari bo'yicha o'sha mablag'larni to'lashlari ham o'zaro kelishib, o'sha xorijiy oliy ta'lim muassasalariga belgilangan tartibda to'lab berildi. Diplom masalasi yuqorida ham savollar bo'ldi. Endi bu yerda bakalavriatda ham, magistraturada ham o'sha o'zaro kelishuvlar asosida bizda o'sha bir xil namuna shakl bo'lganki, bu yerda ikkita tomonni ham diplomini olish. Masalan, MGO bilan Milliy universitet bo'ladigan bo'lsa, demak, o'sha boringki, biotexnologiya ta'lim yo'nalishi bo'yicha, demak, bitiruvchilarimiz ikki tomonni ham talabini to'liq bajargandan keyin, o'quv rejadagi o'zaro hamkorlikda tayyorlangan o'quv rejadagi fanlarni to'liq o'zlashtirgandan keyin, demak, ikkita tomondan ham diplomlarni olish imkoniyatiga ega bo'ladi. Ya'ni MGO Moskva davlat universiteti va O'zbekiston Milliy universitetining davlat namunasidagi diplomlarni, bu albatta imkoniyat yoshlarga faqat o'sha oliy ta'lim vazirligi tomonidan, demak, o'sha ta'lim yo'nalishlariga kvotalar kelishib beriladi. Albatta, oliy ta'lim vazirligi bilan kelishgan holda oliy ta'lim muassasalari o'zi tasdiqlaydi. O'quv rejalari o'sha yil o'quv davriga mos ravishda ikki tomonning ham o'quv rejalarini gibrid qilgan holda, asosan mutaxassislik va ixtisoslik fanlariga e'tibor qaratilgan holda shakllantiriladi. va yakunda o'sha o'quv reja ikki tomonda ham diplomni olish imkoniyatini bera oladigan darajada shakllanadi. Bu yerda biz amaldagi ya'ni davlat oliy ta'lim muassasalarida amalda o'qiyotgan talabalarning o'quv rejalaridagi umumiy soatlardan biroz ko'proq bo'lishi mumkin. Unday holatlar kuzatilmoqda. Masalan, amaldagi o'quv rejalarida 6400 soat bo'ladigan bo'lsa, 4 yildagi bu gibrid qilingan o'quv rejalarida 7000, 7500, 8000 soatga ham chiqib ketganlari bor va bu o'sha semestrni davrini yoki o'quv yilining davrini 1-1,5 yilga uzayishiga olib keladi. Mana shu yakuniy qarorimiz tasdiqlansa, mana shu Vazirlar Mahkamasi qarori tasdiqlansa, bu yerda o'sha qabul qilish masalasi, abituriyentlarni o'qishga qabul qilish bu yerda juda ko'p hollarda muammolarga duch kelinyapti. Qabul qilish tartibi, buni ham biz aniq bir ramkaga solib qo'ymaganmiz, chunki qabul qilish tartibini oliy ta'lim muassasasi xorijiy hamkor oliy ta'lim muassasasi bilan kelishgan holda tashkil etadi. Sababi bizda masalan Rossiya oliy ta'lim muassasalarining talabi boshqacha, yoki Koreya oliy ta'lim muassasasining talabi boshqacha, yoki Yevropaning o'sha boshqa davlatlarning oliy ta'lim, har bir oliy ta'lim muassasasining o'zining talabi bor va qabul jarayonlari o'sha o'zaro kelishgan holda tashkil etiladi va bu erkinlik ham oliy ta'lim muassasalariga berilgan. Kimlardir test ko'rinishida, kimlardir yozma ish ko'rinishida yoki suhbat ko'rinishida, kimlardir bitta fandan, kimlardir 3 ta fandan o'sha kirish imtihonlarini tashkil qilgan holda amalga oshirmoqda. Buning eng muhim tomoni, biz o'sha oliy ta'lim muassasalariga tayyorlanayotgan kadrni javobgarligi oliy ta'lim muassasasining o'zida bo'ladi va o'sha hamkor xorijiy oliy ta'lim muassasasi bilan kelishilgan holda tashkil etadi o'quv jarayonini, semestrlarni tashkil etadi va O'zbekistonda va xorijiy oliy ta'lim muassasasida o'qish davrini ham o'zaro kelishadi o'zlari. Qaysi yilda, masalan, 2-yili xorijga boradimi yoki 4-yilimi yoki 1-yilimi? Bu ham o'sha ta'lim yo'nalishlarining xususiyatidan kelib chiqqan holda o'zaro kelishuvlar asosida shakllantiriladi. Asosiy erkinlik demak oliy ta'lim muassasalarining o'zini vakolatiga berilgan. Bizda endi ochig'i mana 1-2 yilda ozgina murakkabliklar bo'ldi. 20-yilda pandemiya sababli bu yildan xudo xohlasa mana 21-yilda qabulni oliy ta'lim muassasalarining tashabbusi bilan vaqtliroq boshlash. Ya'ni amaldagi bizda davlat oliy ta'lim muassasalariga qabul jarayonlari boshlanmasdan oldin boshlash taklif qilinib oliy ta'lim muassasalari bizga chiqyapti. Vazirlikning bu masalada hech qanaqa e'tirozi yo'q. Hattoki o'sha joylarga borib seleksiya qilib, o'sha iqtidorli, shu tilni biladigan, shu sohaga qiziqadigan yo'nalishlarga yoshlarni tanlab olish. Bu yana bitta ma'lumot uchun aytib o'tishim kerakki, bu jarayon 18-yilda boshlangan bo'lsa, keskin ko'paydi hozir qo'shma dasturlar. Lekin bu vaqtinchalik narsa bo'ladi. Biz hozir o'sha ta'lim yo'nalishlari yoki mutaxassislarni yoki o'sha hamkor oliy ta'lim muassasalarini ham seleksiya qilinadi albatta. Bu 1-2 yilda seleksiya qilingandan keyin ishlaydiganlari qoladi, ishlamaydiganlari faoliyatini sekin-sekin to'xtatadi. Asosiy maqsad bu yerda qo'shma ta'lim dasturlarida kadrlar tayyorlashning asosiy maqsadi bizda o'zimiz respublikamizda iqtisodiyot va tarmoq sohalarining rivojlanishini hisobga olgan holda bizda tayyorlash imkoniyati kamroq bo'lgan kadrlar tayyorlash imkoniyati kamroq bo'lgan yo'nalishlarda kadrlar tayyorlash asosiy maqsad. Bu muhandis texnik sohalar, tibbiyot sohalari, shunga o'xshash yoki turizm mana sohalarida xorijdan biz uchun ehtiyoji yuqori bo'lgan yo'nalishlarda kadrlar tayyorlash asosiy maqsad qilib olingan. Va shu sababli biz mana 1-2 yilda buni to'liq seleksiyasini amalga oshirib, yaxshi ishlab ketganlari va qolganlari faoliyatini to'xtatadi. Ma'lumot uchun aytishim kerakki, nafaqat xorijiy oliy ta'lim muassasalarini jalb qilish bizda mana 2020-yildan boshlandi. Bizdagi oliy ta'lim muassasalari qo'shni davlatlardagi, masalan, Qozog'iston, Tojikistondagi oliy ta'lim muassasalari bilan qo'shma dasturlarni shakllantirdi. Bu aksincha, demak, bu qo'shni davlatlarda fuqarolari bizni oliy ta'lim muassasalarini o'sha qo'shma dasturlarda o'qishini. Bu boshqa tomondan, ya'ni ularga biz o'sha zaruratga ko'ra tegishli yo'nalishlar bo'yicha qo'shma dars asosli kadrlar tayyorlashga yordam beramiz. Asosiy beradigan ma'lumotim mana shu. Agarda savollar bo'lsa, nima bo'lsa marhamat. Rahmat azim.
Katta rahmat Abduvor aka, juda ham mazmunli taqdimot uchun. Demak, biz hozirgi kunda olib borilayotgan mana shu birgalikdagi dasturlar haqida ko'p ma'lumot oldik. Agar ishtirokchilarda savol bo'ladigan bo'lsa, marhamat.
Abduvor aka, men Yusufman Tatudan. Hozir siz ikki tomonlama diplom haqida gapirdingiz. Qo'shma diplom varianti ham ko'zda tutilganmi? Kelajakda bu haqida bir rejalar bormi?
Domla rahmat. Biz bu masalani 2019-yil shug'ullandik, ochig'i. Bu yerda juda ham ko'p savollar bo'lib qoldiki, biz hozir agar u variantga keladigan bo'lsak, ikki tomonni o'zaro bitta diplom berish qanaqadir yangi shaklda. Bizda bilasiz, davlatchi o'sha qonunchilikda diplom namunasi kamida Vazirlar Mahkamasi qarori bilan tasdiqlanishi kerak-da, ish beruvchilar tan olish uchun. Bizda hali ish beruvchilar umumiy oliy ta'lim muassasasini brendi yoki diplomni brendi bo'yicha ishga qabul qilish ko'nikmasiga ega emas. Biz u tajribani agar amaliyotga joriy qiladigan bo'lsak, tasavvur qiling, boringki 20 ta oliy ta'lim muassasasi shunaqa nimaga kelishsa, o'zaro bir xil qanaqadir yangi namuna diplom berish. Biz 20 ta hujjat qilishimizga to'g'ri keladi. Shu sababli bugungi kundagi eng yaxshi, eng yengil, oson yechimi mana shu holatda turibdi. Agarda lekin bironta oliy ta'lim muassasasi o'shandan keyin hali taklif bilan chiqqan yo'q. Agar taklif bo'lsa, qanaqadir biz imkon darajasi oddiy yechimlari bo'ladigan variant bo'lsa, qo'llab-quvvatlaymiz. Faqat bitiruvchi, asosiy bizning maqsadimiz bitiruvchi diplomni olgandan keyin muammoga duch kelish kerak emas. Ishga kira olmay ertaga u diplomni tan olmasdan yurish kerak emas. Birinchi qo'yiladigan masala mana shu. Rahmat.
Rahmat.
Javob uchun. Demak, Abduvor akani so'zlaridan kelib chiqadigan bo'lsak, hozirgi kundagi aksariyat birgalikdagi dasturlarimiz yakunida alohida ishtirok etayotgan oliy ta'lim muassasalarining diplomlarini olish bilan yakunlashadi ta'limni va kelajakda birgalikdagi diplom olish ham rejaga kiritilgan. Bu oliy ta'lim muassasalarining talabidan kelib chiqqan holda amalga oshirilishi ko'zda tutilgan deb xulosa qilsak bo'lar ekan.
Albatta, bu endi bizda mana doimiy qo'shma dasturlar faoliyatini biz ta'lim sifati inspeksiyasi bilan o'rganib boramiz. Bular demak sifat jihatdan inspeksiya doimiy tekshirib boradi, xulosalar berib boradi, qanaqa nima muammolar bo'yicha. Hukumatlar o'rtasida kelishuv bo'lgan davlatlarda oliy ta'lim muassasalarini diplomlarida masala yo'q. Narigi o'zaro kelishuv bo'lmagan davlatlar bilan qo'shma dasturlar tashkil etilgan yo'nalishlar bo'yicha bu yerda o'sha u diplomlarni O'zbekiston tan olinishi bo'yicha albatta inspeksiya o'zini nimasini qarorini qilib beradi, xulosasini.
Katta rahmat.
Rahmat.
Demak, hozir yana bitta qisqagina savol olishimiz mumkin, vaqtimiz bor. Marhamat, ishtirokchilarda savol bo'ladigan bo'lsa. Xo'p, menda bitta savol bor. Demak, yana 2 minut vaqtdan foydalangan holda vazirlik yangi mana bu oliy ta'lim muassasalarimiz yangi hozir kelishuv qilayotgan bo'lsa hamkorlari bilan vazirlik nima tavsiyalar beradi, qayerda mana shu loyihani birgalikdagi dasturni shakllantirishda va oliy ta'lim muassasalari nimalarga e'tibor berish kerak boshida, xatoliklarga yo'l qo'ymaslik uchun, samarali bo'lish uchun shu haqida qisqacha aytsangiz, keyin keyingi taqdim.
Rahmat. Avvalambor qo'shma dasturlarni tashkil etishda hamkor oliy ta'lim muassasasini o'zi umuman nafaqat o'zini nimada dunyoda, balkim o'sha o'zini davlatidagi ham nimasi o'rni birinchi navbatda. Keyingisi o'sha kadrlar tayyorlash yo'lga qo'yilayotgan ta'lim yo'nalishlari bo'yicha kadrni biz uchun qanchalik bugungi kunda ehtiyoj borligi. Ya'ni qo'shma dastur bo'yicha kadr tayyorlash kerak ekan deb ochib ketaverish kerak emas-da, to'g'ri kelganmi. O'zaro kelishuvlarni, shartnomalarni amalga oshirganda o'sha imkoniyat darajasida talabalarni xorijiy o'sha oliy ta'lim muassasasida o'qish davrini ko'proqqa qo'yish. U hamkor oliy ta'lim muassasasini ham moddiy texnik bazalarini albatta ko'rish kerak. Bu ahvoli o'zimizda oliy ta'lim muassasasidan og'ir bo'ladigan oliy ta'lim muassasasi bilan qo'shma dasturda kadrlar tayyorlashda bu yerda maqsadga muvofiq emas, hech qanaqa foyda bo'lmaydi bizga. Sababi yuqorida ham aytdimki, qo'shma dasturda kadrlar tayyorlash asosiy maqsadi bizning yoshlarimiz o'sha moddiy texnik bazasi zo'r, ancha zamonaviy bo'lgan xorijiy oliy ta'lim muassasasi bilan borib bu yerda o'sha yerda qisman bir vaqt bir semestrni o'qib, shuni havosida nafas olib kelish kerak. O'sha joyda ko'rib.
Rahmat. Siz javoblar uchun yana bir qancha savollar yuborishyapti. O'ylaymanki, mana shu barcha taqdimotlardan keyin yana savollarni qabul qilasiz degan umiddamiz.
Rahmat.
Shuning uchun demak, Anika xonimga so'z beramiz. Marhamat.
Yeah, thank you so much. We will certainly have some time after the two presentations now, and then I also had a question actually, but I don't know, will Mr. Solikov also be here till the end, or shall I?
Marhamat, agar sizda savol bo'ladigan bo'lsa, o'ylaymanki bitta savolni qabul qila olamiz, Abduvali aka qarshi bo'lmasalar.
Okay, yeah, because I was also curious to know, I think you mentioned that there is possibly then an extended training time. So that might be something that is not attractive for students. So I would maybe, if you just want to briefly elaborate on possibilities for recognizing the period that the students spend then in the partner university. Or did I understand you correctly that you mentioned that there might be then an extended training time, because then the students might think, okay, they don't want to do it if it's a longer study program. Or have you seen that you can graduate in the same time also in double degree programs?
Rahmat savol uchun. Bu yerda srok deganimiz o'sha bakalavrda yoki magistraturada o'qigandan keyin bu kamida degan masala turibdi. To'liq agar bu yerda o'qiydigan bo'lsa, bu yerda oliy ta'lim muassasalarini nimasini professor o'qituvchidan jalb qilish kerak. Jalb qilganda hamki biz asosiy maqsadimiz, bu ham aytib o'tdimki, talabalarni xorijiy oliy ta'lim muassasasiga borib qisman o'qib kelish kerak. Bu ko'proq o'sha kadr tayyorlashning asosiy maqsadi hisoblanadi. Biz qo'shma dastur bekorga aytilmayapti. Agarda to'liq bu yerda o'qish bo'ladigan bo'lsa, unchalik nimasi savolga aniq o'tdim.
Yeah, okay, we can even come back.
Yo'q, u umumiy yil cho'zilmaydi, o'quv yili. Tushunmabdi shekilli savolga. Nima? Qisqasi bunaqa, mana o'quv rejalarida batafsil ichiga kirib tushuntiradigan bo'lsam, bizda majburiy fanlar bor, masalan, blok fanlari deyiladi, shu davrgacha. Bizda o'quv diplomni olish uchun o'sha fanlarni o'zlashtirish kerak. Xorijiy davlatlarda o'quv rejasi o'zining talabi bor, shu fanlarni o'zlashtirish kerak degan narsa. Bu yerda mutaxassis va ixtisosiy fanlarning o'zaro kesishishi hisobiga ikkita o'quv rejadan bir gibrid o'quv reja kelib chiqadi. Aksariyat holda bugungi kunda ko'p yo'nalishlar bo'yicha o'sha gibrid o'quv reja desak, o'sha o'quv rejada unaqa soatlar keskin oshib ketgan yo'q. Bo'lishi mumkinki, bu yoqdagi majburiy fanni qo'yishga yo'nalish uchun to'g'ri keladigan bo'lsa, o'shanda masalan 6000 soat emas, 6500 soat ketish hisobiga semestr 4 oy emas, 4,5 oy bir semestr.
Yes.
5 oy emas, 5,5 oy bo'lishi mumkin. Lekin umumiy o'quv yili o'zgarmaydi. 4 yil bo'lsa, 4 yil bo'ladi.
Yes, yeah. Okay, thank you so much. And also maybe a final comment. You referred also to the COVID pandemic situation, and now we have also seen that it allows innovation in terms of joint study programs. So you can also look for virtual input from teachers from other countries, or for blended learning. So you don't have to, you maybe have to be a little bit more flexible also with the structure and the mobility structure. So looking for virtual mobility options. So it also allows for some development, even though it puts restrictions, of course. So let's continue with the next half an hour, where we will go into the development and really now looking at the what to think about when you start developing a joint program, and then followed by then case study from the Tashkent State University of Economics. And I'm actually also glad I noticed that many of these aspects are similar to what was mentioned before in your approval of joint programs at national level. So when you enter joint programs, it's really a little bit like entering a human relationship. So you think about your future direction. Where are you going? So like you mentioned, this academic or labor market demands. So you think about the future. What competencies and knowledge will be needed in the future in your country, in your region, and what can your institution provide? And you look for partners who work within the same field and have some complementing expertise to provide. So there should be some reasons and added value for joining up with that particular partner university. It's also important for you that you are not alone within your own institution. So sometimes you have very enthusiastic professors. Normally that is the starting point, and it's a good starting point because it should be also the academic interest. But since joint programs are complex and kind of complicated to develop, it's really important to get everybody from your own institution aboard. So I'm going to go a bit further. So looking at the key players from your own institution is really that, because you are integrating study programs, it means you are integrating the whole basic functioning of your university. So for the contract, you will need legal support. You will need colleagues from the admissions department, because even though you mentioned previously that you have quite wide autonomy and flexibility in setting up joint programs, when you issue an Uzbek degree, you still need to check that you comply with the admission requirements. And involve your international office, because you will be maybe receiving or sending your students. Involve your marketing department, because you will be promoting that international study programs. The financing department for tuition fees. And also for promotion and marketing of the international joint study program, also the leadership, your rectors and vice rectors when they move around meeting partners, and also unexperienced colleagues. We many times face a situation where somebody is developing a joint program for the first time, and they look for sources on internet and Google and anywhere, but then in maybe the department, the neighboring department is already running a program. So knock on the doors also of your colleagues in the institutions. So going a little bit back to the looking for partners, one important aspect is also, like when you start any relationship, that you know yourself. So you know your national requirements, you know what is possible, you know your institutional requirements. This is something we will be working on tomorrow in a group work tomorrow morning. And you will be looking in your partner universities then for this academic expertise, for mutual trust, for open communication, also quite open dialogue that you can discuss maybe a little bit delicate issues. So that issue we discussed in the morning about the diploma and what will they receive. So I think just be brave and go ahead and ask your partners, what is the diploma they receive in the end? Because of course it's important. And yeah, make sure that your partner also has the same long-term vision. And some administrative skills is of course beneficial if they have been dealing with international student exchange before as well. So it's also important to take your time, particularly if you're going to apply for some funding, and make sure everyone knows what it's all about. So really start also by discussing these definitions so that people know what you refer to when you talk about joint degrees or multiple degrees or double degrees. What does it actually mean, and how do people understand these concepts? Because sometimes we are too afraid to discuss openly what we mean with all this. So that would be actually a very brief introduction to the development, and tomorrow we are going to go more deeply into there is a template for the contract, so which aspects to think about when you go into the negotiations. But now I think it's time for the case study, and then we should leave time for the questions if there are also questions in the chat. So do we have already the professor?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
So if you allow me to demonstrate my screen.
Yes, I will stop sharing here now. Hello and nice to see you.
Demak, navbatdagi so'z Toshkent davlat iqtisodiyot universiteti raqamli iqtisodiyot va axborot tizimlari kafedrasi dotsenti, qo'shma dasturlar koordinatori Azizjon aka Bobojonovga beramiz. Marhamat.
Assalomu alaykum, hurmatli ushbu tadbir ishtirokchilari, xonim va janoblar. Prezentatsiyam ingliz tilida bo'lganligi uchun ingliz tilida gapirishga harakat qilaman. Good afternoon, dear colleagues, dear friends. Today's my presentation is about experience of launching joint programs in Uzbekistan. I said it in 7 steps. Brief information about Tashkent State University of Economics. University is one of the leading and oldest universities in the field of economics studies in Central Asia, and was founded in 1931, and more than 12,500 students study there, and we have 9 faculties and more than 450 teaching staff involved in teaching. So we are celebrating 9th anniversary this year, and we welcome everyone to this event. About our experience in launching joint double degree and joint programs. We were one of the first universities to launch the double degree programs and joint programs in Uzbekistan. We have experience with the Russian university, Ural State Economic University, launched in 2018. This is the undergraduate programs, double degree programs in finance, economics, and business analytics and management. And then with the Austrian University, this is also started in 2018. This is also double degree program in management, international business, and also in a level of master degrees. We also started with the Austrian Krems University of Applied Science. And we have in a master level, we have a joint programs with the National Research Nuclear University of Russia and the Webster University of United States. In MBA, also in master level, and in undergraduate program also. This year we started. We can say that 2020 and 2021 we started the double degree program with the Turkey University of Applied Sciences, Finnish University, and double degree program with the London School of Economics and Political Science. Yesterday we made a confirmation event of launching this joint program including three programs. And we have also joint program with the Global University of Islamic Finance in SAFE. This is a Malaysian university. And coming out of these experiences, I will share the experience of launching double degree program with the Turkey University of Applied Sciences in 7 steps again. Let's say step 1 is intersection. Why this is called intersection? This is where you meet with the similar people with the similar interests. This is the touch points where the ideas and ideas or your interests intersects, and this can happen by your partners where you work with them. I think most of the universities work with the joint projects and mobility programs, conferences, seminars can be reason for that. Education fairs, university partnerships, contacts, friends and colleagues can be the reason of these interests and ideas. As Professor Annika Sundberg mentioned, almost she covered everything in what I was going to tell today, but I'll go deep in practical aspects. Usually you will not start the joint programs with just what you are not good at, and not just we are economic university, let's make an economic joint program. This will not start like this. In our case, I'm IT business, my field is IT business, so I'm really interested in IT projects, and we have higher tech capacity building project in Erasmus Plus, also is digital technologies. And that's why always this kind of projects are interesting to me. And once we had a meeting with the Honorary Consul of Finland in Uzbekistan, Mr. Alisher Jurayev, and here you can see him and also the ambassador of the Finland to Uzbekistan and the foreign ministry of the Finland, where we had a talk about one company from Finland is going to invest in Uzbekistan to many different projects, and the initiation were coming from the Peter Westerbacke, who is a well-known innovative entrepreneur in Europe, a well-known entrepreneur, and who was the mighty eagle at Angry Birds. Most of us know this game, and he's real IT and innovative person, and that's why the projects of these projects were interesting to me. And I said, as the government is encouraging us to launch double degree programs and joint programs, and I was thinking about the certificate program or the gaming laboratory at university. But after the meetings, let's say this is the second step, where we discussed rooms for partnership and ideas. There were meeting on Zoom with the Honorary Consul of Finland and Uzbekistan, and this is followed by the Finance Future and Turkey University of Applied Sciences. In all this, administration of university were involved and interested, because the year itself was digital, focused on digital technology and digital economy. This is the slide from our Zoom and the team video conferences. You can see Peter Westerbeke, also our rector, and the administration of Turku University. After these talks, we decided to start the double degree program, and it started with a letter of intent from Turku University and to Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Higher Education, that we were going to start like partnership with the Tashkent State University of Economics, and this is official letter, official start of the partnership. So we announced that everybody knows that we are going to go to partnership with the Turku University of Applied Sciences. And this is a step 3. We signed off, signing ceremony of the signing part of MOU. We indicated that in the MOU, launching joint double degree program. So we are going with the, this is just not a simple MOU, but we are going with a kind of aim and target that we launch a double degree program. This is a ceremony of signing MOU with the Turku University of Applied Sciences. We invited Foreign Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of, and also Ministry of Higher Education. So this is the photo from that signing ceremony. As there was a pandemic, we were very fast on that, and we did not like make a big event, and we just made a short, small, brief meeting, and we signed this MOU online. So next step was the drafting the agreement. This is, I think, the most important part, because from our experience, it took like almost 2 months to agree on terms and conditions, responsibilities of the agreement. In my like experience, I say the things to discuss and include in the agreement should be like curriculum. You should discuss which part you teach and which part the colleagues, partners will teach, and share of teaching, and minimum number of students to start the program, and your interests in the program. You should like push your interests also. I mean, this should be win-to-win project, and also responsibilities of the parties should be included. Who will accept students, who will interview the students, who will send acceptance letter, this kind of details. And both partners should be flexible. We were like always try to be flexible on everything, to do our best to be good partner, and from the other part also like understand this, and they also try to do in short all the required like documentation, bureaucracy, and this kind of things. So flexibility also is also very important. And step five is announcing the launch of the program. We in this we made a big event with the involving mass media, and in this step you should think on the advertisement and promotion of the program. If you launch the program and this is the great program, but nobody knows about it, you don't reach the targeted audience, and then it will not be successful. So we made it in the Telegram channels where the most applicants are interested, and government journals and newspapers, and also in YouTube. And we also made it in Kazakhstan number of announcements. So we go to the step 6. After like announcement, we have application and acceptance process. This also takes time, as suggested from our partners, the partner organization of Turku University of Applied Science, EduNation, and this is also the part of company Finance Future, who were like intermediary in our starting this partnership. They helped with the application, and the application was completely online. And we also said what to do, like we announced again the application, how the application works, and we explained the by phone. We received the phone calls and we emails, and we launched the website web page on our university website, and we asked our partners to do same thing. So it should be like the applicants should be like sure of in what they are going. I mean, so this is the after application process. We called each applicant to know their intention before the setting interview, because there was one thing that I should mention as an experience. This program's tuition fee is higher than above tuition fees in Uzbekistan. It's like 11 and 500,000 euros. And from marketing position of we did not announce at first the tuition fees. We just made indicated it in the website, but we did not give it in the announcements. So we had many applicants, but they were not informed about the tuition fees. So the next thing was like we made another announcement with the tuition fees and explained the details of these tuition fees and scholarships and the etc. etc. So the interview questions, you can see we did not require TOEFL or IELTS to be faster on that and flexible on the program. We made an interview to certify that to learn their English ability, English speaking abilities, and this was like first again thing that we come to across, that without the language proficiency test we started the program, the interview. I mean, we also included this in the agreement too. But one thing is to mention, we will focus on the more English language skills during the studies, adding the extra hours to extra credits to English language. And we sent acceptance letters to those who were like passed from the interview. According to the Turku University of Applied Science, the interviews were made by the University of Turku University of Applied Sciences. And again, the signing contract part is the contracts also should be, we should be very careful with the contracts also. We should include in it the what we have stated in the agreements. I mean, when the students going to fail, or when the students should pay the contracts, and I mean, usually in Uzbekistan we use the 1-year contract form, but we should in this double degree program we are using like 4-year contract paper. This template includes like 4 years. And I go to the step 7, starting the program. Now we are on this step. We are working on facilities and coordination of the project. As from the beginning of the double degree program, the team working is very important. As Professor Annike Sundbeck mentioned, otherwise, if you don't work with the team or the university departments, you should create one yourself, your marketing department, your HR department, your like accountant, and everything should be like your own. It can't be, as you know, it can't be. So you should work with aligning these issues with these departments. And also you should include in your project one of the administration of the university who will take care of the bureaucracy part, or the involving the other departments to this program. And next one is hiring faculty, and the last one is budget and management. Budget and management part also very important to state universities, because when giving a simple advertisement on newspaper, you should go with the many bureaucracy processes. I mean, if the money coming from the tuition fees is not separately managed in this project, double degree projects, so it cannot be like can be taken the full it cannot be the management cannot work without the like finances. So you should manage your finance your own, or finance yourself. That's why this part also very important. You should open your own account, like for double degree program, or it should be managed by the separate accountant, or accountant should be attached to this project. You should know all the details of your budget. We had a similar experience with the Krems University of Applied Science, that part of the budget gone with the university budget, and we cannot like separate them. Did we do well last year or not? And thank you for your attention. If you have questions, I'm ready to answer.
Katta rahmat Azizjon aka, juda ham to'liq ma'lumot uchun va qadam-ba-qadam nima ishlar amalga oshirilgan birgalikdagi dastur shakllantirishda juda ham tushunarli taqdimot bo'ldi. Ishtirokchilarimizda savollar bo'ladigan bo'lsa, biz savollarni qabul qilishga tayyormiz, vaqtimiz bor. Demak, agar savollar bo'ladigan bo'lsa, siz yozma ravishda ham chat orqali berishingiz mumkin, yoki mikrofoningizni yoqib bemalol savol berishingiz mumkin bo'ladi. Va barcha taqdimotchilarimiz, ma'ruzachilarimiz hozir onlayn, bemalol savolingizni kimga berayotganingizni yoki nima mavzuda ekanligini aniqlik kiritib aytsangiz javob berishadi degan umiddaman. Katta rahmat.
To'xtataman ekranimni bo'lmasa, ruxsatlaringiz bilan.
Rahmat.
Rahmat.
Savolim bor edi, agar ruxsat bersanglar.
Marhamat, o'zingizni tanishtirib, domla, qaysi oliy ta'lim muassasasi nima tashkil etadi?
Men Husanboy Yo'ldashevman, Jahon tillari universitetidan qo'shma ta'lim dasturlari bo'limi boshlig'iman. Bitta savolim bor edi, Turku bilan amalga oshirilgan qo'shma ta'lim dasturi bo'yicha. Savolim shunaqa: e'lon berganda sizlar kontrakt summasini aytmagansizlar, veb-saytga ham qo'ymagansizlar. Abituriyentlar topshirdi, kirdi, undan keyin suhbat o'tkazdilar. Shu suhbatdan keyin necha foiz abituriyentlar shundan voz kechdi? Ya'ni moliya imkoniyati yo'q, boshqa sabablarga ko'ra. Shuni bilmoqchi edim. Keyin hujjat qabul qilish jarayonida aynan kontrakt summasi bo'yicha bo'ladi bizda mingta savol. Shunaqa vaziyat yuzaga keldimi, yo'qmi? Rahmat.
Rahmat Husanboy aka savolingiz uchun. Biza e'lon berganimizda veb-saytni ko'rsatdik-ku, lekin summani aytmagandik. Veb-saytda summa yozilgandi. Ko'pchilik topshirganlar veb-saytga kirmasdan turib, o'sha yerdan to'g'ridan-to'g'ri hujjat topshirishgan. Bu hujjat topshirganlarning ko'pchiligi biza hammasiga telefon qilib chiqdik. Biza ularni to'g'ridan-to'g'ri intervyuga olganimiz yo'q. Biza shu jarayonni ko'rib bilganimiz uchun, masalan, ko'pchilik to'g'ridan to'g'ri topshirishni inobatga olib, har biri bilan gaplashib, tushuntirib chiqdik. Ya'ni kontrakt summasi mana shunaqa. Masalan, biz partnyorlar bilan gaplashganda, masalan, partnyorlar 11,5 ming yevro Finlyandiyadagi o'qishni narxi, endi xarajatlardan kelib chiqib, biz uni ikkiga bo'lib to'lashni O'zbekiston fuqarolari uchun, ya'ni bizning programmamiz uchun ikkiga bo'lib to'lashni Finlyandiyaga borganda kelishdik bu narsaga. O'zbekistonga 4 ga bo'lib to'lashni kelishdik. Shunda birinchi navbatda o'sha talabalar topshirganligi uchun ko'pchiligi buni aytaylik 80% отказ berdi. Biz uchun ham bu bir naqa bo'ldi. Keyingi e'lonlarimizni masalan eng ko'p abituriyentlar kiradigan saytlar, masalan Xushnudbekni va boshqa kanallarga berishga harakat qildik. Bundan keyin ahvol o'zgardi. Chunki talabalar bilib, yana qo'shimcha tushuntirishlar berdik. Masalan, Finlyandiyada ishlash mumkin, ishlab o'zini kontraktini to'lashi mumkin. Keyin bu yangi soha, umuman IT tadbirkorligi bo'yicha Finlyandiyaning eng Nokia bilan Microsoft naqalari bo'lgan ofisida bo'lishi, yuzlab startap kompaniyalarning atrofida bo'lishini tushuntirib, qiziqarli naq qilishga harakat qildik. Rahmat.
Rahmat.
Rahmat Husanboy aka. Yana kimda qanday savol bor? Marhamat. Savollar shakllanguncha Azizjon akaga bitta savol. Mana shuncha etapdan o'tibsizlar, bosqichlardan o'tibsizlar. Nimalar tavsiya qilasiz? Mana hozirgi kunda birgalikdagi dasturlarni, ya'ni qo'shma dasturlarni shakllantirish arafasida turgan o'qituvchi professorlarimizga sizlarda qanday o'zingizlarga xos qiyinchiliklar bo'ldi va qolganlar shu narsani takrorlamasligi uchun nima tavsiyalar berardingiz?
Rahmat Qudratxon aka, savolingiz uchun. Juda ham kerakli savol deb o'ylayman, chunki ko'pincha boshlaganda o'zi unaqa aytilganidek ko'p qo'shma dastur qilish takliflari juda ham ko'p tushadi. Shunga ko'pchilik boshlaymiz deb harakat qilishi mumkin-da. Naqada ham shunga o'xshagan vaziyatlarda shu jihatdan kim loyihani boshqaradi? Qaysi jamoa boshqaradi loyihani? Kim shu komandani tuzish eng muhim bosqich deb hisoblayman. Agar komanda yaxshi shakllansa, bu naqani loyiha juda ham muvaffaqiyatli bo'ladi. Agar uni egasi bo'lmasa yoki bir kishi yo ikki kishi loyihani boshlamoqchi bo'lsa, unda omadsiz loyiha bo'ladi. Bu birinchi naqa. Keyin hamma naqalarda ham masalan shu rahbariyatni ushbu loyihaga qo'shilishi, ya'ni rahbariyatdan kimdir boshchilik qilishi yoki uni kontrolida bo'lishi kerak deb o'ylayman. Davlat universitetlarida ayniqsa. Keyingi masala marketing masalasi. Bizda masalan men ochiqchasiga aytaman buni, masalan qo'shma dasturlarning narxi balandroq bo'ladi. Qo'shma dasturlarning narxi o'rtacha kontrakt narxlaridan baland bo'lgandan keyin bunga jalb qilinadigan talabalarga ham shunga yarasha e'tibor berish kerak. Ya'ni boshqa talabalar bilan bir xil darajada bo'lmasligi kerak. Ya'ni qaysi jihatdan ularga yaratiladigan sharoitmi, internetmi va hokazo jihatlarni e'tiborga olish kerak va bunga to'g'ri marketing xarajatlarini qilish kerak. Bizda marketing xarajatlarini ko'pincha biz to'g'ri baholanmaymiz. Masalan, $14,000 naqa bo'lsa agar, bizani turku bilan naqamiz 11,5 ming yevrolik bo'lsa agar, biz bunga masalan $300 sarflab yoki $500 sarflab bu loyihani muvaffaqiyatli qilishimiz juda ham qiyin. Bunga to'g'ri marketing podxodlar kerak. Buni endi oldingi naqa bitta e'lon berib naq qilishimiz ishlamaydi bunaqa loyihalarda. Ya'ni tushuntirish uchun call centerlar qilishimiz kerak, yana bitta masalasi. Ularni chaqirib universitetda qayoqda o'qishi, qayoqda kim o'qitishi kabi masalalarga ham e'tibor berishimiz kerak. Ular oxirgi masala bo'lmasligi kerak. Mani fikrim shu jamoadan boshlash kerak avvalambor. Yaxshi jamoa shakllantirish kerak.
Katta rahmat. Rahmat. Marhamat, savollar bo'ladigan bo'lsa, balki Anika xonimda savol bordir biz taqdimotchilarimizga.
Yes, thank you so much for your presentation. Or did you have any? Yeah, I can maybe if there is something. Yeah, I was wondering, or just a comment first that also you mentioned the importance of the team and involving everyone, and I also discussed it earlier. And so there, I think there is a difference if you look at internationalization of Uzbek institutions or internationalization at home, as we call it. So then if you start joint programs, you will involve more colleagues than normally. So if you have, for instance, credit mobility in Erasmus Plus, maybe you have the international office, but for the joint programs, you will need more colleagues. So they will all also kind of develop their skills in social skills, language skills, intercultural relations. So that's also an impact in the national institutions of the joint programs. But I was also wondering when you mentioned the tuition fee. So does the Uzbek government provide scholarships for study abroad or for like for taking the entire degree? For instance, for students with a weaker socioeconomic background, or do you have anything like this?
If the question to me is for the first part of the comment, I say yes, there should be more people involved in this. And considering this, we also included in the agreement that our faculty will visit Finland to teach part of the courses. And so they also will visit, like, for example, we have in the first year Finnish language, and we cannot teach the Finnish language. And so we should involve the who speaks Finnish language faculty, I mean. And also we should give the same rights to like applying to Erasmus projects, programs, mobility programs, to that students who are studying in double degree programs. Yeah, also I think that we should also consider that the other departments who are helping with the double degree programs, this is an extra job for them. We should include their also the cover their expenses or by time or by work. This also should be like included. Otherwise, we cannot like involve in the like voluntarily everyone to the project, to the program. I mean, and for the scholarship part, yesterday we asked the fund Eliurt Umidi that we have who supports with the scholarship, and they said that they will provide scholarship in the level of like master and above, and they do not like provide scholarship for double degree programs. I think this should be, if someone here from the Fond Eliurt Umidi, they should comment on this. Thank you.
Maybe a follow-up question also, because in Finland, in the beginning of joint programs, the Ministry of Education provided also some kind of strategic extra funding for higher education institutions to develop and set up joint programs, or even for the ones who had set up the programs for running of the programs. But is that something that the Uzbek Ministry for Education has been considering?
I think if I don't know, do we have such a kind of support from the Ministry of Higher Education? But if I correctly understand that, you mean the Uzbek higher education is going to support this kind of programs, you mean?
Well, I mean, that's what the Finnish minister in the beginning because they wanted to support internationalization of Finnish higher education. So they provided, the Finnish funding for higher education is based pretty much on numbers, so graduates and all that. But they have a small amount, so-called strategic funding, that they provide for kind of extra initiatives, and then they started also providing for institutions who develop joint study programs.
This is a good hint, I guess, because it was the launching our program was very, like, we started talking about it in November. So, and we launched it in 5th of January, we announced the opening, and it was pretty quick, and I think we'll ask our colleagues to learn about this possibility. And one thing that from Finnish side, they said, if the student in first year, they will learn Finnish language in our courses. If they pass the Finnish language proficiency test, so they will get a reduction 4,000 euros in their studies. And this is also like a good opportunity for the students who learn Finnish language. This is again the commercial project, and I don't know how that fits with the strategic aim of the Finnish higher education.
Yeah, I also wanted to comment on that. You had some aspects or some points on the agreement that you signed, and you mentioned that it's one of the most essential steps of the process, and that's something we are going to discuss tomorrow in the morning also. So I don't know if you have the opportunity to be there. I think there are a few more points that I had in the template that I'm sharing tomorrow also on the admission requirements, for instance, and also maybe the quality assurance and the fees as well. So it's good to decide on how you distribute the fees and what is your principle there.
Thank you. I will be there.
Katta rahmat, juda ham mazmunli savol javob bo'lyapti. Shu o'rinda eslatib o'tmoqchi edim ishtirokchilarimizga, sizlardan iltimos, mana bu chatda biz link berdik, mana o'tayotgan tadbirimizni baholab berishingizni iltimos qilardik, ozgina vaqtingizni ayamasdan. Demak, savollar bo'ladigan bo'lsa yana qabul qilishga tayyormiz. Tadbir davomida bir nechta ishtirokchilar menga shaxsan yozishdi va ularda shunday savol shakllanyaptiki, o'qish, ya'ni birgalikdagi qo'shma dasturlarda ta'lim jarayoni mana boshlash tashkil qismini ko'rdik, lekin talabalarni o'qish davomida ularni o'qishdan chetlatilishi yoki boshqa kursga ko'chirilishi masalalar ko'rib chiqilganmi? Shu masalalar qanday hal qilinadi? Bunga kim aniqlik kiritib bera oladi? Marhamat, taqdimotchilarimizdan kutib qolamiz.
Men o'zimni naqamdan javob berishga harakat qilaman. Bizada Finlyandiya tomonidan imtihonlar qabul qilinadi. Bizlar tomonimizdan o'qitiladi birinchi yilligi va Finlyandiya tomonidan qabul qilinadi. Bizning dasturimiz 1+3 bo'lgani uchun birinchi yil bizada o'qiladi va shu jarayonda biz ham o'qishni tashkil qilamiz va imtihonlar Finlyandiya tomonidan olinadi, qabul qilinadi. Shu sifat shu bilan nazorat qilinadi. O'zi ko'pincha Finlyandiyaning universitetlari sifat jihatdan dunyoda tanilganligi uchun ham ko'pincha naqalarga topshirishmaydi. Boyagi meni tushunishim bo'yicha boyagi top nechtalikka kirishga harakat qilish ham hojati yo'qda. Finlyandiyaning dagi ta'lim tizimini o'zi naqasidan gapiradi, sifatidan gapiradi deb o'ylayman. Va qolganlari shu Turku amaliy fanlar universiteti tomonidan imtihon qilinadi va baholanadi. Biz bu jarayonga aralashmaymiz, kelishuvimizga muvofiq. Chunki asosiy qismini biz o'sha dasturni shakllantirayotganda kelishuv bo'lgan. Biz shu o'zimizda eng to'g'ri keladigan yo'nalishni fanlari bilan gibridni dastur qilganmiz. Yana shuni aytib o'tish kerak, bu juda ham tez bo'lgan dastur, juda ham tez kelishuvlarga erishib, juda ham Tashqi ishlar vazirligi, oliy ta'lim vazirligini qo'llab-quvvatlashi bilan bo'lgan juda ham tez jarayon. Shu uchun endi kelajakda biz yana keyingi qabullarimizda ko'p narsalarni yaxshilashga harakat qilamiz. Chunki yana hozir muhandislik yo'nalishiga ko'proq urg'u beriladi, dasturiy ta'minot va tadbirkorlik. Keyingi naqalarimiz iqtisodiy nuqtai nazardan qaratilgan bo'ladi.
Katta rahmat Azizjon aka. Shu o'rinda mana yana ikkita savol kelib tushdi. O'qib beraman. Diqqat qilsangiz, keyin javobni eshitib qolamiz. Me'yoriy hujjatlarni rasmiylashtirish ishlari qanday ketmoqda? DTS, malaka talablari, o'quv reja va fan dasturlari. Iqtisodiyot universitetida ingliz tilida 1 yil yoki 2 yil dars bera oladigan professor o'qituvchilar tarkibi mavjudmi? Bu birinchi savol. Keyingisiga o'tamiz. Agar siz javob berib bo'lganingizdan keyin yana bitta savolimiz bor.
Iqtisodiyot universitetida ingliz tilida o'zi darslar o'tiladi. Ingliz tilida bakalavrda ham ingliz tili gruppalarimiz bor. Undan tashqari Krems universiteti fakultetimiz ingliz tilida to'la darslar bo'lganligi uchun unda ham ingliz tili o'qituvchilarimiz naqasi bor. Lekin buni aniq ro'yxat naqasida men aniqini bilmadim, chunki buni o'sha naqaga berish kerak. Loyihani koordinatorlariga berish kerak. Ya'ni alohida baribir bu narsa bilan o'quv bo'limi naqalariga murojaat qilishsa, ular shug'ullanishadi bilan.
Katta rahmat. Yana bir savol sizga yuborilgan. O'quv jarayonlaridan tashqari tashkiliy masalalar ko'zda tutilganmi? Ya'ni viza olish, sayohat jarayoni bo'lishi mumkin. Shu ya'ni safar davomida sizlar oliy ta'lim muassasalar qanchalik ko'maklashadi talabaga? Ma'lumot berishingizni so'rayman.
Bizning shartnomaga muvofiq, buni ham shartnomaga kiritganmiz. Shartnomaga muvofiq Turku amaliy fanlar universiteti tomoni bu vizaga yordam berish, u yoqqa borgandan keyin joylashish naqalarga yordam beradi. Ya'ni buni ular qilib bermaydi, lekin albatta yordam beradi. Masalan, yo'nalish ko'rsatishi, masalan, borib joylashishiga ham takliflar qilishi, umuman koordinatsiya bo'ladi bu jarayonlarning hammasi. Viza bilan bog'liq jarayonni Finlandiyani O'zbekistondagi faxriy konsulligi amalga oshiradi. Ular bizning partnyorimiz. Undan tashqari o'sha ochilish marosimida Finlandiyaning elchisi O'zbekistonni Finlandiyadagi elchilari qatnashib, butun qo'llab-quvvatlashlarini bildirishgan.
Katta rahmat. Yana savollar bo'ladigan bo'lsa, marhamat. Demak, savollar hozircha shakllanyapti deb umid qilamiz. Shu vaqt oralig'ida iltimos qilamiz, 10 kishi bizda demak baholab berishibdi. Yana qolganlarni ham faollikka chaqiramiz iltimos sizlardan. Demak, chatda keltirilgan Google'dagi formada baholab berishingizni iltimos qilamiz. Ya'ni bugungi tadbirimizni va ertaga ham xuddi shunday baholashni amalga oshiramiz. Xo'sh, mana bir savol. Turku bilan imzolangan qo'shma ta'lim bo'yicha shartnoma va memorandumlar kerak bo'ladigan me'yoriy hujjatlardan namuna va ishda foydalanish uchun taqdim eta olasizmi debdi. Ya'ni shu namunalarni men tushunishimcha ochiq ma'lumotni siz o'rtoqlasha olasizmi agar murojaat qilib chiqishsa sizga?
Manimcha memorandum hammada bir xil unaqada bo'ladi. Manimcha standart unaqada memorandum, faqat biza qo'shganimiz unga double degreeni amalga oshiramiz deb punkt qo'shganmiz, yo'nalishlarni ko'rsatib. Shartnomani punktida bizda ko'rsatilgan shartnomani bera olmaymiz.
Tushunarli, katta rahmat. Demak, sizlarda ham double degree, ya'ni alohida diplom oladi bitiruvchilaringiz. Bitta diplomga ikkita taraf imzolab bermaydi, to'g'rimi? Azizjon aka? Azizjon aka bilan aloqa uzilib qoldi o'xshaydi ularda. Agar Annika xonimda qo'shimchalar yoki savollar bo'ladigan bo'lsa, marhamat, yana 5 daqiqa vaqtimiz bor. Savollar kutib qolamiz.
Yes, maybe I could do a little bit of a roundup and also recap of what we have done, and going back to the question of the agreement, which is really important. And I think also your colleague from Tashkent University of Economics mentioned that you have also a student contract. And in that contract, it's good to line and list both the rights of the student and the obligations. So what happens if the student doesn't proceed, and what are the student rights as well? Because when it's a different operational context and operational environment, it's good to make all those things clear. Now I think Aziz is also back with us now, but yeah, so I think that's another question. We can continue on that tomorrow as well. But I hope that after this morning's session, you have a clear idea of what kind of, well, at least a few different models of international joint programs, and we will discuss those models even more tomorrow. We have had 2 cases. So the first one was the Erasmus Mundus program, and now this Finnish Uzbek also example. We discussed the political drivers and backgrounds for joint programs and some definitions, and also reasons for students, higher education institutions and staff to join these programs, and also the importance of legal frameworks in different countries. And you have had very relevant and important input from national authorities now on the question also of the legal framework in Uzbekistan. And it seems that you have a wide autonomy, which is very good. But then on the same time, you also need to be conscious to take care of the rights of the student to have this recognized degree. So I think it's been very interesting for me to also follow the discussions this morning. And if there are no further questions, I can maybe get in touch also with the NEO colleagues and get feedback from that form. You are sent the feedback form, and so I can think about questions for tomorrow and the program for tomorrow. So if there are no further questions, I thank you so much for your active participation, and please fill in the form, and then I will see you again tomorrow morning at 10:15.
Katta rahmat. Demak, juda ham samarali taqdimotlar uchun va savollar uchun barcha ishtirokchilarga minnatdorchilik bildiramiz. Yana bir bor takrorlab o'tamiz. Ya'ni ertaga ham xuddi shu vaqtda 10:15 da tadbirimiz boshlanadi. Ushbu taqdimotlarga qo'shimcha ravishda bizda ta'lim sifatini nazorat qilish davlat inspeksiyasining ham taqdimoti o'rin olgan. O'ylaymizki, ertangi bo'ladigan barcha taqdimotlarimiz barcha ishtirokchilarimizga foydali bo'ladi deb o'ylaymiz. E'tiboringlar uchun katta rahmat. Ertaga ko'rishguncha.
Thank you. Sorry, shall we stay with the NEO colleagues just for a few minutes?
Annika, yes. Maybe I will send you another link, then we can discuss. I will send you another link for the
Kudratxon. Let us end this meeting now and then rejoin the same link.
Okay.
Okay.